Hello, welcome to Introduction to Formal Logic, Phil 205, and Math 205. I'm Matt Brown. I'll be your professor for this course. What we're going to do today is two things in this introductory lecture. We're going to first talk about the topic of the course, what is logic, and specifically what is formal logic, and what is the types of formal logics that we're going to mostly focus on in the course, deductive logic. And right off the bat, I want to say logic is not only a sort of technical field of interest to philosophy majors and mathematics majors, but also relevant across a wide variety of areas. Logic questions appear on law school entrance exams. There's a lot of use of logic in computer science and engineering, and I think a lot of relevance to your everyday life. So in terms of analyzing ideas and engaging in systematic and critical thinking. So I look forward to sharing this with you. Let's get into it. I want to start by talking about what logic is. Now, in everyday language, we use the term logic in a few different ways. We say something is logical to mean that it's like reasonable or commonsensical, maybe. We might also talk about logic in the sense of the logic of some system or activity, the logic of this business, or the logic of capitalism, the logic of war. Those aren't quite the senses of logic we mean. Logic in our sense means the investigation and evaluation of arguments and inferences. If we make an argument or we make an inference, what makes that a good or bad one? By argument, by the way, I don't mean a fight, yelling and hair pulling and stuff. I mean presenting reasons or ideas to try to convince someone of something. Now, deductive logic, which is our main focus in this class, concerns those particularly strong kinds of arguments or inferences where the truth of the premises that you start with guarantees the truth of your conclusion. Right? We'll talk more about that in a minute. Let's look at some examples of arguments. Here's one. So premise 1, if God does not exist, then life is meaningless. Premise 2, if chocolate exists, then life is not meaningless. Premise 3, chocolate exists. Conclusion 4, therefore God exists. Now we can ask, is this a good argument? And we can evaluate that in different ways. The logical way of evaluating it tells us that yes, it is a good argument. If premises 1 through 3 were true, then conclusion 4 would also have to be true. Maybe you disagree with one of the premises, right? Maybe you think premise 1 or premise 2 is false. Maybe you think premises like 1 and 2 cannot be true or false because they deal with concepts that don't have that kind of meaning. But those are not logical issues. Those are issues of content. If you think, on the other hand, that the premises are true, then you're obligated to believe the conclusion. That's what formal logic tells. That's what logical reasoning general, deductive logical reasoning in general tells us. Here's another example. All whales are mammals. All mammals are hairy. So all whales are hairy. Again, this argument is a good one, logically speaking. Now you might object. Whales, dolphins aren't hairy, but they're mammals. So the argument must be bad. Well, in what sense might you say it's bad? You could deny premise 1, say that whales are fish. Herman Melville seems to believe that. Or you could deny premise 2, say some mammals aren't hairy, right? But if you accept premise 1 and 2, it seems like premise 3 must, or conclusion number 3 must be right, must be true. Actually, I think the argument is right. Even whales and dolphins have hair, although sometimes just in utero before they're born, and they lose it. Depends, I guess, on what you mean by hairy. Here's a third argument. All students carry a backpack. The professor carries a backpack. Therefore, the professor is a student. Now, this is a bad argument. Not because the premises are false. Suppose the premises are true. Suppose it's true that all students and the professor carry a backpack. Can you see why? Even if all students carry a backpack, that isn't the same as saying that all backpack carriers are students. The order matters in this kind of statement, and the order in these cases makes it such that the conclusion doesn't follow from the premises. And one of the tools of formal logic is representing or translating claims in ordinary language into what we call a formal language that makes more clear the form or structure of the claim. We'll learn what the symbols I'm about to show you mean in future units, but we can translate claims like, if God does not exist, then life is meaningless, into a kind of schematic form, right? Here I'm using G to represent God and God exists, and M to represent life is meaningless, and then the arrow indicates the if-then structure of this statement. All students carry a backpack. We might represent with a slightly more complicated set of formal tools like this. For all X, if X is a student, then X carries a backpack. It would be how we would read that formal statement. Consider another statement like this: the person who knows the combination to the safe is not a spy. We'll learn much later in the class that the probably best way to represent this formally is a formula like this. Now that's complicated and maybe a little intimidating, but by the time we get to it, it will be clear to you what it means and you'll learn to do this translation work pretty easily. So that's just a very quick sort of introduction into the basic ideas that we're going to be working with in this class. Now I want to get into some of the mechanics of it, how you're going to work your way through this class. It's an online class. We're not going to have meetings face-to-face, and so it's actually going to work a little bit more in a self-paced way, independent way, as follows. So the class is divided into several units, right? Based on the kind of core learning outcomes that we're going to focus on. To get more information about the learning outcomes, you should consult the syllabus, and you'll see both the learning outcomes that you'll achieve if you make the way through the course and how they are tied to each of the units. So for each unit, you need to do the readings, watch the video lecture like this one, and complete at least one practice problem set, with the exception of this unit 0 has no practice problems. It's just the introduction. For this unit, just read the syllabus, watch this lecture, and that's what you do. And this will unlock the exam for that unit. In unit 1, there'll be reading from the textbook, there'll be another video lecture, there'll be a set of practice problems. I think we've got 4 practice problem sets for the first unit. And then once you do that, you'll be able to take the exam. If you get a satisfactory score on the exam, and it differs per exam, but most of them it's an 80% or better score, that will unlock the next unit, and then you can start on the next unit. If you don't get that score, it doesn't mean you're done, right? You can retake the exam many times if you need to, although you do need to wait 48 hours and complete additional problem sets in order to unlock the next a retake of the exam. So you can take all of the time you need to master each of the units, which corresponds to different learning outcomes for the course. And however far you make it indicates your level of mastery in the class. Your grade in the class is a function of how many units, and so how many learning outcomes, you gain mastery over. For example, an A in the course means that you get a satisfactory grade on all 7 exams. You've made it through all 7 units in a satisfactory level. That's a level of mastery. An A minus is exams 1 through 6. A B plus is exams 1 through 5, plus giving a good try on exam number 6. You tried once. It was more than just a, click on it and open it and submit whatever. It's a genuine attempt, right? The syllabus will give the full breakdown of grades and what you have to do to achieve that grade. Satisfactory, as I said, depends on the assignment, but is typically about 80% correctness. That might seem low, but the exams are not easy. And to get to that level really shows that you have basically mastered that set of concepts, right? Completion of an assignment, and this is most relevant for exams, but also for the practice exercises, means making a reasonable effort to complete it, which could consider the number of questions answered, the amount of time taken, and the final score that you get, even though it's not satisfactory, it's not just it's better than random chance, let's say. So I'll look at your attempts closely to determine whether they meet this criterion whenever it's potentially at issue. Now I want to talk about what comes next. What should you be doing as part of this introductory unit for the course? First, you should spend some time poking around D2L, making sure you understand how D2L in general works if you're new to it, and how the course in particular is set up. I'll go through in a minute some of the features of that. You need to download and print or buy a copy of the textbook. The textbook is provided for free. It's an open educational resource, so you don't have to buy the textbook for this class, although you can buy a print-on-demand version, and that link is in the syllabus and in D2L, or you can download it and print it. You can also view it on your computer. By the way, just because the textbook for this course is an open educational resource does not mean that you will not pay the textbook fee for this class. You have to intentionally opt out of that fee for your classes. So I would look at this class and your other classes and determine whether it makes sense for you, whether it's worth it to pay the textbook fee so you can opt out if you need to. But just because there is no textbook to buy for this class other than maybe a moderate or nominal fee to print the book, doesn't mean you won't pay that fee. So keep an eye on that. I strongly recommend that you do not look at the book on your phone, on your cell phone. The formatting is not really amenable to that. It's going to be very difficult to read. In general, I recommend that you use a laptop or desktop computer and not a phone to take this course. You should read the syllabus carefully and make sure you understand it. Let me know if you have any questions. And you should log into the system called Carnap for the first time using the link in D2L. Carnap is where a lot of our practice exercises, you can think of them as homework assignments, as well as some of our exams will be used, and you'll need to access that through D2L, so it syncs with your D2L account. And once you feel comfortable with all of that, and if you've asked me any questions, if you have them, you should go ahead and take the practice exam. One of the last things I want to do is just mention briefly that occasionally you'll find in the video lectures in this course references to Philosophy 320, a class called Deductive Logic. That is the old number and title for this class. So I originally taught this class under that number. Some of the slides in the video lectures will have that course number on it. But don't worry, the content is exactly the same. This is not a 300 level class masquerading as a 200 level class. This always should have been a 200 level class, and it's been corrected now. So just if you ever see references to Phil 320 Deductive Logic, just know that that's this class. In the unusual case that you took that class already, you should not be taking this class. Okay, there shouldn't be any overlap. Okay, next what I'm going to do is give a little guided tour of the D2L setup for this class. I have logged into D2L and clicked on our course, and here's the basics that you see. When you log in, you'll see the welcome to class announcement here. It hasn't posted yet because the class hasn't started. But most of what you'll find that you need to access in the course is under content, which you can view here or down here. So I'll click up here. And I've gone through everything before, so it will look a little different because not everything here on the left will be unlocked when you first come in. You'll also see the video lecture that I'm recording now will be posted there. But you'll see the course introduction gives you some basic information about what you need to do in this unit. The link to the textbook is here, which you can download or print. You'll also see there's a link to order it print on demand. From Lulu. I think it's $7 and change plus shipping cost. The class syllabus is here, which has all the basic information about the class, what the different units consist of, and how the grading works. You'll need to click on Carnap login to set up your account in Carnap, which I mentioned just a minute ago. So make sure you do that, and you'll come back to this page often to do your practice exercises and also some of your exams. And then once you've clicked on everything else, the practice exam will open up, and you'll need to complete this in order to unlock Unit 1. And generally, this is how all the course components are going to work, all the different units are going to work. You'll unlock the unit, you'll get some basic information, and you'll go through activities like the lectures, like the practice exercises, one by one. And once you've done a sufficient amount of that material, not necessarily all of it, it'll unlock the exam for that unit, which you can take. And once you receive a satisfactory score on that exam, it'll unlock the next unit. Finally, I just want to mention that although this is an online, asynchronous, self-paced course, there are lots of ways that you can get help and you can get in touch with me. I'm always available for you to reach out, and I will do my best to get back to you quickly. I do have office hours that are listed on the course website on D2L, and you can come see me in person in my office in Feiner, but you can also reach me on Teams, email, and by phone during that time. All that information is available on D2L. If that time is not a good one for you, you can reach out and I will respond promptly. If you don't hear back from me within 24 hours, please send me a note, unless it's the weekend. So you should hear back by the next business day from me. So that's the basics of this class. As I said, feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and best of luck with it.